Hey, thanks for hopping on the Building Blocks podcast. I'm super excited to interview Adam Mait, who's a co-founder and CRO at Doorloop, which is an awesome new property management software in the space, which I've had a lot of fun just watching their journey. I think they're about 4 or 5 years old at this point, building some really cool technology that I think the industry really needs. On this episode, we're talking about how the market cycles have affected demand for new technology. Obviously, real estate has worked the same way for many, many years, but Adam talks about a few of the niche parts of history of how property management software was started and created and adopted, and how that's led us up to this point, and how technology is creating new opportunities in the space, and where he sees this going in the next 5 years, who's going to come out on top, and what else Doorloop is focusing on. So I hope you enjoy the podcast. I had a great time talking to him. Have a good one. Adam, thanks so much for hopping on the show.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity. Good to see you.
You as well. Super fascinated with the journey that you're on at Doorloop. It's been awesome seeing just like the growth and the new features and the product roadmap. One thing that I thought would be really interesting for us to talk about today is just how we got here, because obviously you're building a super innovative platform with Doorloop, bringing integrations like technology that hasn't existed in real estate for a very long time. I'm super curious as to why, the status quo in real estate is largely to manage $100 million assets with accounting software, right? Maybe we could dive into the history of property management software and how we actually got here, because real estate is a super slow moving ship. And I want to know what the motivations are now to change at a faster rate than we ever have before.
Awesome. Well, how we got here is you reached out and we're having this chat, but I know that's not what you mean. And, appreciate the opportunity to talk about the real estate industry. It's something I've loved for years. Even before Doorloop, I was in property management, real estate development. So really have a love for this particular, industry. I guess the high level, when we talk about history, right? Property management software is not a new thing. Property management software started late 70s with a product called MRI that was sort of to the forefront of the market. But when you're talking about that level of a software platform, it's not for the mom and pops, right? You're not using a full blown software, which really was accounting based because you have a couple of doors or even tens of doors. You need to have an operation behind you. Back in the 70s, to even afford the computers and the like. And then in the early 80s, the sort of name brand product became Yardi. And Yardi is just, again, that enterprise level software. Need computer systems to support it, need teams to support it, very large modules to use. And then in the 90s, another large product called OneSite came out. And then what you started seeing is, in the early 2000s, there was the dot-com bubble, and people became a lot more acclimated to, I want to do things on a phone, I want my personal laptop. And there really weren't dedicated property management softwares for smaller landlords, property managers. And that's when you started to see sort of an influx of these property management softwares. That's kind of the history. And then we can talk about where Doorloop fits into the mix, but I want to give you an opportunity to chime in and ask any questions so far.
Yeah, for sure. I guess when it comes to the introduction of those systems, it makes sense that it was accounting based. And even today, you have people that buy a certain PMS because I like the accounting reports. And the buyer, this is probably a whole separate other conversation, but the buyer and the user are different, right? Let's say the
Yeah,
buyer is the owner of this massive
100%.
company, but the person who has to use it is not the same person. It's someone else at the company. And they
Nail on the
go,
head.
we hate this software. And the buyer's like, but I love the reports. It tells me exactly what I want to see. So we have this crazy disconnect. And for a very long time, I don't see any motivation to change it, right? There's complaints about people who don't buy the software. So complaints from people who don't buy the software don't really result in any sort of crazy innovation, right? We serve, you and I have companies, we serve customers, right? So if our customers are telling us they like the product, we're going to keep shipping it. We're going to keep improving it based on what they
That's
say.
right.
But there's been an interesting shift lately, right? You have that history of the new products that have come out, the dot-com bubble, people getting used to doing things online, on the cloud, all that kind of stuff. What are you seeing change in the last 10 years that is giving people additional motivation to actually improve their technology? Because the way I describe property management is a business where you have 100 fires and you have to pick 5 of them to work on. So how did technology become one of the 5 fires if it, from my perspective, it never was in the past, right?
Yeah, I think the world, we're so much more connected than we've ever been, and I think it just keeps happening, and it will become more and more so that case. We're traveling more. I mean, other than the little blip, of course, during COVID, but we're traveling more. We're doing more stuff, and we need to be connected, all the while being moving around disconnected. The office used to be you go to your office. Now it's everywhere and anywhere, right? Uh, and so opportunities are boundless in that way. But at the same time, I need to be able to be connected at the same time, no matter where I am. Your point, by the way, on the user is different than the buyer. One of the reasons we actually got into Doorloop was exactly for that. We wanted to offer an amazing accounting and reporting suite with amazing tools, but that wasn't impossible to use, and that you could also do on the go. And we can talk more about that later. But that was the idea behind it. But in terms of what I think's changed, I think it's the hyperconnectivity, right? And I think it's the ability for people today that own real estate, and I don't mean massive companies, but to say, why can't I use the same tools and make the additional income and be just as efficient on the go as the massive companies were using, a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades ago? And if there's a demand, right? Mother is the necessity of all invention, right? If there's a demand, if there's a need, guess what? It will be invented. And as far as the interconnectivity and the integrations, there are a lot of, before the mass integration of property management software, there were a lot of different tools. Oh, I need to send out documents for signature. There's a signature tool. Oh, I want to collect rent. You can ACH me your money, right? Oh, I want to do a background check. Now I can go to TransUnion and do a background check, right? But that requires a lot of different tools. And everybody's expecting to open up their iPhone or their Android device and it just is there and I can click it. Why do I need to go to 4 or 5 different places? And then also think about, well, now I'm expanding my operation. I've got a maintenance person. I've got a leasing person. Do I want to give multiple different logins to different people? Why can't it all be in one location? And so again, Doorloop came into the mix and others as well. There are other good players in the market. And we're like, yeah, that's how it should be. Let's make it easy. Let's make it affordable. Let's build the accounting and reporting so you can have all that stuff in there. So when the bank's asking for that T12, you have it. Right? Let's get the background checks, the payments, the e-signatures, the applications, the websites, all under one roof. I think that explosion's occurred.
I just made a really interesting connection. You know who Jason Lemkin is? He's a very famous SaaS. He's a very famous SaaS speaker. Okay. He had a couple of, I think, 1 or 2 exits, and he runs a very popular SaaS conference and media platform. He talks about how in most industries, the bulk of the innovation comes from the smaller businesses, and then it trickles up and it reaches the enterprise, as opposed to, it's a little bit counterintuitive, right? It's aren't the biggest best companies doing the most innovative stuff, and then we all copy them? Not necessarily. In most cases, actually, no. And us talking about the user being different from the buyer kind of just explained to me why that happens. If you're talking about a massive company that has $1 billion of assets under management, the person at the top of the chain says, hey, you know what? We want to use this PMS. I don't really care how bad the user experience is because I like the reports and I'm not the one using it. So this is what we're doing. When you go down to the smaller mom and pops that you talked about, the user and the buyer tends to overlap way more often.
That's right.
So suddenly they're experiencing these problems that lead to the innovation.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And right, if you are a somewhat tech savvy person and you're like, I can't figure out these enterprise solutions, you're going to say to yourself, is there not an easier solution out there for me that does what I need? And by the way, do I need all the crazy stuff that these multi-moduled programs that the private equity groups are using? You don't, or you don't. And so the opportunity for players to enter into the market space for what we'll call mom and pops, but mom and pops can be groups that have hundreds of units or even low thousands of units. That's the space that we're playing in. And that's really exciting. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. And I'm seeing some of especially in third-party property management, I don't know what percentage of Doorloop customers are own the properties or just manage them. But in third-party property management, your margin is actually the amount of time that you spend on the property. And here's the quiet part out loud. Owners hire a third-party property management company. They expect everyone to be completely aligned on the deal. The owner wants to do anything and everything to hit the IRR, the hold period, all the metrics that a deal is supposed to hit to call it a win. And the property management company is not incentivized based on that. It's incentivized based on the percentage of revenue and how long the owner keeps using them and how little work you can do to keep the client paying you. Like that's every service business. Like it's just what it is. That's just the facts on the ground. So when it comes to technology, what's another interesting piece of this, if you can use technology, first of all, technology is billed back to owners. If you're a third party, you're not paying for technology. That's billed back to owners. If you can use technology to make your processes more efficient, then you've just you've created a better business.
Yeah.
And that's really attractive.
Yeah. Well, it's even more. I mean, you're 100% on point. And I take it a step further. It's not only to make you more efficient, but now you can generate additional money, right? Like I'll give you an example. One of our competitors, really great product, Appfolio. Appfolio gives an option where if a tenant's paying via ACH, they can either bill the tenant like $2.49 per ACH, or the owner of the account, the property manager, landlord, can pay like $1 for that transaction, right? In Doorloop, we said, well, hold on a second. What about if there's an opportunity where we'll give the ACH for free and give the landlord or property manager an opportunity to bill a convenience fee, right? Hey, really great opportunity there, right? Now you can make money on it. Not only are you more efficient, you don't have to collect the rent checks and go and deposit them, automatically done through the software and additional revenue streams. So little things like that as well, to your point. Those opportunities continue to exist. Go ahead.
One thing that's fascinating to me is, like we've said, the way to build wealth with real estate or to succeed in real estate has been largely unchanged for a really long time. But with this introduction of technology, you're finding deals that might not have penciled before, but suddenly when you become savvy and creative with all the different ways that you can make money with this asset, one of them being what you just mentioned. What if it's like, wait a minute, how much money are we making if every single time someone pays rent, we're actually just collecting a little bit more? And you keep stacking these different little, like, you can call them optimizations of different ways to generate revenue. It just opens up a whole world of opportunity when it comes to deals that you might not have bought before, but suddenly you can make them work because you can just be smarter with how you implement technology, how you charge, how you package the product. It's pretty fascinating to me.
I'll even 100% plus more, which is now you can underwrite deals that you wouldn't have otherwise considered because they're not in your backyard and you don't necessarily need the additional labor cost. Hey, you know what? I got a mobile home park. Okay, I don't even need to be there. Tenants can pay online, or better yet, Doorloop as an example, we have an integration with Western Union. Great, go to Western Union locations, Walmarts, Dollar Generals, pay your rent, it gets deposited in the landlord or manager's bank account. You don't need anyone there. We have mobile apps. Tenant, just log onto your mobile app. You have a maintenance request, no problem. We'll respond to it, right? Opportunities open up in places you wouldn't have considered, and you don't need on-site, or at least as many people on-site in some circumstances, to field all of that stuff. Hey, something was problematic? No problem. I'll go get a vendor to fix that. But it's not the ongoing cost of that human capital. So just a couple other things to consider.
Yeah, and even working with those vendors is getting a lot more streamlined, which is pretty cool because any real estate business has to rely on so many vendors. So many. I'm one of them, right? Like my product's one of them. Doorloop is one of them. And just working with those people, seeing technology make that easier is also a game changer because no one can do everything on their own. You're always going to have someone who's going to do unit turns, fraud, whatever it might be.
Yeah, fraud checks, of course.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the kinds of deals people are looking at now, obviously interest rates are higher than they've been in a while. Demand has softened in a lot of markets. Like if you look at Texas, I'm really fascinated with the Texas market.
Yeah, it's
really fascinated with that market because you have a lot of oversupply and softening demand at the same time, and you're seeing some deals.
A couple of years from now, I mean, Texas is a great market, really good market. I mean, South Florida's just gotten absolutely crazy.
Bonkers.
But insane.
Yeah, so I think looking at these kinds of markets is super fascinating because you start to look around at other opportunities for how am I going to make this work with market conditions. Obviously, I'm bummed for everybody who raised money for a deal that didn't work out. I just got off a call earlier today where I think this person had like 130 evictions this year due to fraud and things like that. And these kinds of things are just a killer and they can destroy any kind of deal. But on the flip side, when you have this kind of market tightening and you have all this pressure, everything working against you, that's where the best tech comes and kind of blossoms. When we're in a great market, I remember even in 2021 when we were launching some new products, and it was very hard to sell them because when occupancy is at 99% and you're trying to kick people out because they're under market, you don't really care about this cool new thing. Things are going well, and I'm not going to focus on you right now. But now that everything has turned, suddenly we're seeing this greater demand for products that actually integrate with, Western Union, or
Yeah.
do things for you that generate additional income that you couldn't generate before. And I'm curious where we're going to take this. Like, obviously, our product is like marketing and leasing automation, so that's something that hasn't been so sought after until recently, and we're seeing that people start to ask us about it right now. And it's interesting to notice the correlation of how often people are inclined to try new products versus where what market cycle we're at, right? Like, what part of the cycle are
Yeah.
we in?
Yeah. Well, people look, if money is just flowing, right? Then I dropped an extra whatever on some additional people. Okay. When things are tight, right? I gotta count my nickels and my dimes, so to speak. And that's when technology becomes super helpful. And then what you have is then people start using it and they're like, well, do I really need the additional humans, so to speak, to help me run those operations? And so I think what you'll see is when times are tough, there'll be more reliance on the technology. And I believe that will actually continue. I'll tell you the one concern I do have is people pushing technology into what I'll call the human capital. What I mean by that is this, and actually I'm putting out a LinkedIn post on this because I'm seeing it a lot. If you want to ask your, property management software, hey, can you send me a copy of a lease? And the software goes in, like grabs a copy of the lease and emails it to you. That's cool, right? And maybe your landlord already posted a copy and you don't even need to do that. Where I see this becoming problematic is I have a maintenance request, right? Hey, it's cold in my apartment, right? AI tunes in. What do you mean it's cold? Like, I don't know, the heat's not working. Well, what do you mean the heat's not working? Would you like to troubleshoot it? And then you're like having this back and forth. And that reminds me of like me calling up the bank and speaking to 17 different AI prompts before I can finally get someone on the phone and I'm screaming at it, right? My concern is that we're becoming too reliant on the technology and we're forgetting the human element. One of your earlier comments was about, how efficient can I be so that I can spend as little time doing stuff, right? I will tell you, to me, the best property managers will spend as much as they can on the technology so that they can spend more time with their tenants and with their owners if they're property managers, or if they're owners looking for additional deals, but they need to keep the good tenants. You told me a story a couple of minutes ago about all these bunch of evictions. Imagine if you had the time, you could meet with all of your customers, right? Imagine if you had a time as a property manager where you actually met with all of your landlords or scheduled calls with them. Probably less likely to turn over, right? And we all know property managers, there's a very high rate of turnover in landlord property manager relationships. What about if you met with all of your tenants on a regular and you know what, that increased the rate of paying of rent? Like these types of activities, right? So I want to make sure that we don't get too far along the whole, I'm relying on everything technology, and we forget about the individuals that actually occupy that real estate and own that real estate.
I have the same exact concerns, and I talk to two different kinds of clients. Let's put them in two different buckets. One of them tells me I'm so excited for AI to replace all of my leasing agents so that they never call in sick and I don't have to deal with this and I don't have to manage people anymore. So that's one bucket. And obviously there's some people who are super excited and gung ho about it and just saying, well, yeah, let's do this. Let's get rid of all the people. This is going to be great, right? And then I have the other bucket, which goes, wait a minute. My people are wasting a lot of time on things that they are not great at, right? Let's say I have a leasing agent that also has to deal with move outs and managing contractors and doing all this kind of stuff. If I can remove a lot of this stuff from their plate, then I could double their effectiveness without changing much other than just adding some new technology. And that owner is trying to maximize utility. Let's call it maximize utility for every single person on the team, right? I'm responsible for sales and marketing at Flair. My partner is the money guy. There's no point for me to do what he does. There's no point for him to do what I do,
100%.
right? And I think the great owner operators are the ones that are looking at it in that lens of how do I make sure that everyone is doing $100 an hour work, and how do I use this to make all the $5 an hour work go away?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the whole point, right? And like, I'm sure it's the same for you. At Doorloop, we're listening to our customers, right? We have meetings with our customers. We have customer advisory boards. And we're asking, like, how can we help you be more efficient, right? And a lot of customers request something, we build it out. And that's how the product gets better and better. And of course, we're doing research on market segments, trying to figure out how we can offer better products and the like. I just want to make sure we don't forget about the human element, right? If there's something that's an inefficient use of time, yeah, let's figure out a way to automate it. But on the flip side, you want to make sure you get good tenants in, meet with them, right? At least have phone calls with them. Don't just rely on, well, they can go to my website, look at an application, look at pictures, apply. They can submit all the documentation and I can have like AI tools review it all. And then they can move in without me ever meeting with them and have the keys and they open the door. Yeah, it sounds really efficient until it wasn't the person that actually applied that is moving into the unit. And now you're sitting without rent for 3 or 4 months while you go through an eviction process, right? Or until your tenants are annoyed and are posting bad reviews about you as a landlord or your community online because they can't get anybody on the phone ever and their whatever is broken, right? I'm just saying, let's look at both and realize technology has a place and a time. Let's try to be more efficient. Let's use it as an opportunity to make money. But let's remember, like, the money is coming from the people that are living there, and the money is coming from, if you're a manager, from the owners that are hiring you to do the job. Let's focus in on them. And I'm the technology guy saying it.
Right. You know, I think a good way to describe this is, obviously these days we're all on Zooms with a ton of different people, right? Have you ever only met someone on Zoom and then you meet them in person and something has changed? Like, what has changed there? Like, I hear you, I see you, I'm talking to you, I'm experiencing you, your energy as a person. But then when I meet you in person, why is something changed there? It seems like there's like this bond that gets created, something internal. Like, I'm sure some scientists have like mapped out exactly what's happening biologically when you meet someone in person, like whatever dopamine hit happens there. But obviously the relationship has fundamentally changed the second you meet someone in person. And a lot of the people that are talking about get rid of everybody, like, I don't think humans evolve pretty slow. I don't think we're going to evolve to not care about meeting people in person anymore. I think that's always going to do something for us. And that's basically my argument for why you should use tech to empower people instead of replace them.
No, I think you're on. I think you're on point. I think your statement, use it to empower and not replace, is exactly how technology should be used, right? Make me a better version of what I could be. Make me more efficient at what I can be. I want to help making money, awesome as well. But let's take a step back before we go all in, right? That's the gist. Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Sure. I want to cover, let's talk about market shifts again, right?
Sure.
Obviously, with interest rates going up and a lot of deals not going the way that people expect them to go, they're going to start underwriting differently. They're going to start to look at other revenue generating opportunities and that kind of thing. But do you think there's a few problems that 5 years ago, or a few missed opportunities that 5 years ago people weren't focusing on, which they're going to start caring about now with the current market cycle?
In what way? Just so I answer your question directly.
Whether it comes to problems that they want to fix internally inside their property management business. I'll give you an example. Let's say marketing, an easy one is marketing attribution. I don't care about marketing attribution in 2021. I've got 100% occupancy. I'm trying to kick people out so I can raise the rents. What do I care about? I don't care where the leads came from. They're just coming in. So I'm stoked. Now I'm trying to get 10 times smarter about how I spend my dollars so that I can get 10 times more ROI. That could be an example of something that I did not care about 5 years ago. But now, given all of the market constraints and the current market cycle and all that, I might actually start caring about this and seeking out a solution for it. And that demand is starting to exist when it didn't before. That would be an example. Do you see anything else like that where the current market is paving the path for demand for something that might not have been there 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I think I'm seeing a lot more, well, in two areas. One is more on the online payment side of things and online in terms of tenants. Tenants, when I look back, 5-7 years ago, there was less online payments than there are today. It's more of an expectation that I can pay online through a software than it's ever been. On the flip side, on the owner manager side, there's a lot of questions about AI and the influence of AI in tools and what opportunities can I seize on to use AI to be more efficient. I don't know exactly where that AI is going to go. I don't think it's going to do only everything you ever thought of plus more, and I can go sit on the beach all day. But I think there's a lot of opportunities surrounding the AI to make us more efficient. I'm going to stop there on the prognostication because I'm not positive, but those are the two opportunities that I see. Making online payments easier, not only through a portal, via links, giving more opportunities for payments. We're seeing call it layaway plans for rent payments becoming big as well. I can't afford it. Let me pay a company in installments. Security deposit alternative payments as well. Those are becoming a little bigger in the marketplace on the tenant side. And then you have the AI side of things on the landlord side. And I guess tying into that, the also allowing people to be a little bit more remote than they ever have. You started seeing that probably in the last 5-10 years, but it's picked up a lot more. People are expecting more of that mobile application.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a great example of that is, I mean, property management was the last business to ever allow remote work, right? Like, it was like, what are you talking about? Like, we have a physical, it's a physical asset. You have to be there
Yeah.
in person to move somebody in, to talk to people, like whatever it might be. And then like there's a corporate office, which still like remote wasn't really a popular thing. I spoke with a company not too long ago that hired 20 offshore leasing agents to do all communication and just take over communication for like, I think it was a 20,000+ unit portfolio.
They do it with
And
accounting as well and bookkeeping, by the way. Same
yeah,
thing. Yep.
that's wild. And accounting is like one of the biggest pillars of the real estate business. It's
Yeah,
everything.
but if you have 20,000 units, what they'll do, I mean, whether it's 20,000 or however many thousand you have, I can scan all my invoices, I ship them out, have somebody put it in, and it's significantly less expensive, And I guess, frankly, that's great for the, your ROI and your investment. Personally, as a supporter of the US, like I love to keep jobs local, and I would love to see it, if you're in the US, we also have customers in Canada, great, keep it in Canada, but like I'd love to see us supporting our local economy, and maybe leave a couple dollars on the table, but like we're supporting the greater good.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a whole other conversation about why do we offshore in the first place, right? If you have somebody who you're paying $50 an hour, but they have to do $5 an hour work half of the day, you're not going to be too happy about that because you're like, why do they have to do so much tedious manual tasks, going between 20 different portals, going here, going there, calling this
Sure.
person, and juggling all these different tasks? I think AI could actually open up, could actually keep jobs in the US because
Okay, that's interesting.
because if you can get all of the lower level work, I think the reason that we offshore is because we feel like we're overpaying. So if you have somebody who's doing admin work all day, you're paying them $50 an hour, and you see someone in the Philippines who can do it for $5 an hour, you go, why don't I just do it for $5 an hour?
Sure,
Right?
I get that.
It's $5 an hour work. I feel like I'm overpaying for the quality of work that I'm getting. I think with technology, if you actually empower your people, they're going to be doing less and less $5 an hour work, and that discrepancy is not going to be there anymore. So I think this is an opportunity to have a more specialized lean team where you don't feel the need to offshore everything because you're maximizing the utility of everyone on the team. And that's what what's great about that is that's what everyone on the team already wants to do. And they're frustrated doing $5 an hour work. And that's also what executive leadership wants. So maybe AI could actually be like a growth lever for that, to like unlock that constraint.
I hope so. It sounds interesting. I guess the question is, we'll have to wait and see. Time will tell, right? I mean, does it mean that the people that were doing my $5 an hour work, but I pay them 50, maybe I just get rid of them completely? Because I don't really need them. And like, instead of having 4 people or 5 people doing it, I only need one person in local. And then I can have, another person overseas. And then I've got my AI, and I went from having 5 employees to basically one and a tenth, maybe plus the cost of technology. Don't know.
A lot of people are thinking about that. The great question is that in the long term actually going to get you ahead? Because I talk to people all the time who think that way. They go, I'm so happy I fired 8 people, and now like I just have an AI, doing a lot of the inbound requests. So the question is like, is that actually going to get you ahead? Of course you can do that. Anyone can do whatever they want, right? Like I can say,
for sure.
I can say instead of 3 customer support agents, we're just going to do 1, and this person's going to just work overtime. Is that going to get you ahead, or your customers going to be pissed off and churn? So I think the great question is like, yeah, we see people doing it, but who are the ones that are going to come out on top? Those are the people that I want to copy.
I think the question is what you value. So like, I'm going to personalize it a second, right? So at Doorloop, we include support with real live human beings. Don't get me wrong, we have AI tools. You can talk to an AI if you want. About half customers decide to do that. But you can talk to a real live human being. You can chat in. Take it a step further. You can request a human being call you back. You want to do a Zoom session? No problem. We'll schedule Zoom sessions with you. We don't bill you for it. Why? We value the support. We value the human interaction. And our customers are willing to pay for it. Right? You can get a cheaper tool. It may not have all the bells and whistles, and go work with probably a free platform. But we really, and our customers believe, like, you can't go online and sign up for Doorloop. The people that work with us, they vet us, we vet them. We want to make sure we're a good fit. They need support. We're there. We're not just offshoring them. And I think people appreciate that value. Let's take it out of the context of this. You could go to McDonald's and order, from an AI, whatever, from your thing, and go pick it up, right? And maybe that's good. On the flip side, I really love good food. I love good conversation. I love to go and have a really nice service with, in a nice environment, and I'm willing to pay for that. So, I think there's just a difference. It's the old, Gucci versus Walmart method, right? Which do you want, right? Do you want a lot of it, or do you want quality? I think Doorloop's gone the route of quality, even on the smaller customers. Certainly in the larger customers, that was the expectation, but we're trying to bring that down to the smaller customer base as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, speaking of support, AI support agents have exploded because it's a lot easier to train an AI agent on your knowledge base, all that kind of stuff. And when it comes to things like resident requests, I think there's definitely a massive opportunity there for getting them the information they want immediately. That being said, a lot of companies are taking the route of, you know what, it's going to replace, so we're never going to let you talk to a human. I think the hybrid approach is what I love, because you're letting everyone, listen, if you don't have the patience to talk to an AI agent to get what you want, fine, we'll get on a Zoom with you. I love the hybrid approach because it doesn't make you, want to throw your phone at the wall after 17 phone trees asking the bank why the wire transfer was blocked, right?
Or then it gets to the point where after you get to the phone tree, right, you hear somebody with a foreign accent. And by the way, I've lived internationally. I'm nothing against it, but now I'm like, great, I'm about to speak to someone, they're not even going to understand what I'm saying, right? And so we try to keep that local because I think we appreciate that aspect of it. We're also offering the AI tool. We're trying to appease multiple different audiences, but we think the hybrid approach is really great because I think a lot can be solved with the AI. Hey, I have a quick question. And by the way, the AI tools are becoming so smart that oftentimes you're finding they're providing faster, more on target answers than the humans. Because if you answer, you're like, let me make sure I fully understand this, right? And you have your one database of knowledge. Whereas the AI tool, every time a question comes in, it's learning from it. It's learning different lingos. It's giving different articles, and it improves upon itself. And then you have humans interacting with it on our side, improving it even further. So I think there are a time and a place for both, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting, which players come out on top over the next 5 or 10 years, because like I said earlier in the beginning of this podcast, is some people are in the boat of, great, this AI support base is going to replace my support team. And other people are going to go, great, my support team is going to be able to do such a better job because a lot of the lower level tickets are going to be automatically handled because you actually don't need a human to tell someone, hey, this is where the light switch is, or whatever it might be. So it'll be fascinating to watch who comes out on top. And specifically with the smaller, what interests me so much is you're focusing on the smaller end of the spectrum when it comes to the kinds of owners, right? It's not enterprise, and a lot of the innovation comes here.
Yeah, look, I have customers that have a door, right? I also have customers that have hundreds and thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds and thousands of doors. But I think the market segment is there are significantly more people that have under 100 units than over 100 units, and there are more people that have over 100 units but less than 500, and so on and so forth. So there's more to play in that space, right?
Yeah, and with the user and the customer being the same person a lot of the time, I think the requests that you're getting are going to lead to that innovation that actually, in this case, I think the enterprise will want to copy SMB and say, wait, they did some really cool stuff to automate maintenance using technology so that you could have fewer maintenance people and make them more effective and have the customer experience could be better. And I think we're not going to be copying enterprise. I think enterprise is going to be copying us because they're going to be making these requests. And listen, if you have 12 units and that's your livelihood, you're going to do everything to make that deal work.
Yeah, absolutely. No, look, it's interesting. I think enterprise software today is in an interesting situation. Their software was built before sort of this tech revolution, before APIs. If you're familiar with APIs, and I don't know if your audience is, but high level, application programming interface. It's basically computer program lingo. I'm exchanging data. I can push, I can pull, etc. It's how programs can interact and integrate with each other. These legacy software platforms were built before APIs, right? It's really difficult to say, hey, you know what? Think of it as a car. Car is driving down the road, right? Hey, I'm going to change out the engine. You can't just pull over with a property management software, take it offline. So what they're having to do is either build a whole new solution or have multiple different solutions with multiple logins to support their customer base. And therein defeats the purpose of having all in one solution, which the newer platforms, including Doorloop, were tech-proof or future-proof in that regard.
Also, I mean, not to nerd out too much about building software. The old way of
Sure,
building software was let's build everything ourselves. The new way is let's package everything ourselves.
sure.
So you didn't try to replace TransUnion; you just integrated
No,
them into
yeah,
into your platform, right? And I'm sure
100%.
you've done that with a lot of different tools. So that lets
Absolutely.
you be miles ahead. But if you've already have this massive snowball rolling down the hill, we build everything. We build all the fraud in house, everything in house, like
That's right.
marketing, sales, accounting, everything's in house. Then you're telling me that I need to open it up right now, make it easy to connect with anything else. It's going to be very difficult to do. So it's not shocking that it hasn't been done.
And I even take it a step further with Doorloop. Like, don't get me wrong, we build a lot in house, but like, let's suppose there's an amazing vendor, right? Like, we had a payment processor, not throwing names out there. We found a better technology. We now integrate with Stripe. Okay, Stripe is probably the premier processor. We do stuff on the front end and on the back end to help our customers in fraud prevention, right? I hope we work with Stripe for many, many years. They're an amazing partner. They really are. If there was a better technology, it's easy for us to flip the switch and integrate them. And that's just one example, right? TransUnion, the same thing. Great partner, amazing technology. Will they be for the future? I hope they are. Is it easy for us to make a switch? It is because of the way the technology that we built it, right? You're spot on. You've been doing this a lot. You understand the market space, huh?
Well, I mean, we've built. It's funny. You're curious about why this happens, right? It's like, why is there this massive company? Like, let's just call out Yardi for a second. This massive
Yeah,
company that doesn't have an open API. Everything is a struggle. The customers that are on it are frustrated. We're frustrated serving the customers that are on it. And you're wondering, like, why is it perpetually lagging behind new technology? And if you haven't set yourself up for success from the beginning, we set ourselves up for APIs from the beginning so that anything can be interchangeable.
that's right.
And you can create this really lean car where any part can just be swapped out versus one car where everything is basically one part and needs to be rebuilt if you want to change anything. It's going to be impossible to innovate. And when it comes to the introduction of AI put a lot of those products out of business because they couldn't integrate it fast enough because
Yeah,
they were this massive car that was one part that to change out one part, you had to rebuild the whole car.
yeah,
We're just changing out a part over here. It's an oil change. Like,
that's right.
cool. There's better oil. Let's get fresher oil. Let's get something new.
And I can do it while I'm driving down the street at 150 miles an hour. And by the way, since I don't have the tech debt, my platform just got faster. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, yeah, it's amazing. Hopefully, by the way, while you're driving down the road, you're not looking at the mobile app because that would just be bad. Unless you're in like an Elon Musk self-driving car, and then by all means, sit in the back seat and do it up. But yeah, no, 100%. And look, Yardi is a great platform, right? It accomplishes a lot. There's a reason that they're as big as they are, right? But just because it was the best doesn't mean it will always be the best. Just because it was the most comprehensive doesn't mean it will always be the most comprehensive. And just because it wasn't, the most comprehensive doesn't mean you need all that stuff, right? So I think you need to look at it on an individual case by case basis. Hey, I own properties. I own this property type. What do I need to be more efficient? Let me go and find a solution that works for me.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. Listen, talking about the market cycles, how it's affected supply and demand, and just the demand for new products is so fascinating to me. I appreciate you coming on, telling us the
Absolutely.
Doorloop story. It's been an absolute pleasure. Love just hearing all the product updates from your side as well. Hold
Thank
you
you.
all in high regard. So thanks so much.
I really appreciate the time. Thanks to you and your audience for listening in. And if there's anything you ever need, you know how to reach me anytime.
Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Building Blocks. I hope you found some value in the conversation. If you want to get updated every time a new episode drops, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn at @edenchai, or just head over to our website, getflare.io, and subscribe. You'll see our newsletter there as well. That's all for today. I'll catch you next time.